Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Central Podcasting Unit. This is your host, Liam, joined by your co-host,
Noah, here in office again.
Oh, yeah, in office. And today, as promised last week, we have a bit of an exciting topic for you guys. We're going to be talking about 5G.
Yes, 5G.
Yeah, 5G is interesting because there is just a lot of misinformation going on around it, even before a lot of these conspiracy theories, just regarding the capacity of 5G and what it's actually going to mean, when it's going to happen, what is... it just goes on and on and on. I've been seeing a lot of misinformation about that. So I guess really what we want to do is we want to talk about specifically what is 5G and go over kind of what this means for you. And so today, you may have already noticed because of the length of our podcast, but we're actually trying out a new format today. And so for bigger topics like 5G that are very relevant and have a lot of information to cover, we're going to test a format called what we're just referring to as the megasode. And the megasode is going to be divided into at least two sections with an intermission between each section. And typically this intermission will be where ads are. However, in order to actually receive revenue from ads, you need large listener bases.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're a new podcast, so we'll probably just talk a bit about some of our services today during the ad section. So I think that'll be pretty good. So we have a megasode. So we're going to start this megasode off by talking about what is 5G, kind of going over a bit more of that. What does it mean for you? And then obviously one of the things a lot of people have seen is that some people are claiming that 5G causes the coronavirus. There's a whole list of other things people say that 5G causes. And one of the things that we're starting to see is just the misinformation get to the point where people are actually getting threatened or physically hurt, or there's actually attacks on infrastructure and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's escalating pretty dramatically. So we'd like to kind of provide an opportunity to shed some light on why a lot of these theories are wrong.
Yeah.
I think that just about covers that. So without any further ado, that begs the question, what exactly is 5G? And I'll be real honest with you. I have phones aren't necessarily my forte. So what is 5G?
So 5G is just in layman's terms, it's the next generation of wireless networks for phones.
Right. So there's 4G, 3G, 2G, and I assume there's a 1G.
Yep. Yeah. And so 5G stands for fifth generation, not 5 gigahertz. That is an important distinction. Speaking about networks and stuff like that, with your Wi-Fi, with your wireless networks, there is a 5 gigahertz bandwidth that is different from 5G for cell phones.
Oh, really? I legitimately feel like an idiot. I didn't know that.
No, there is a distinction between those two.
Okay.
Yeah, between those two things. 5G is different from 5 gigahertz.
Hence, probably a lot of the misconceptions.
Exactly.
I think, what is it? The industry just kind of wants people to think they're utilizing the best, so they named them the same. Is that what it is?
Well,
kind
of. The 5 gigahertz is just speaking about the bandwidth. That's the frequency it's at. For networking, for wireless, for Wi-Fi. And then 5G is it's the next generation.
Okay.
So that's the only reason they named it 5G.
And so
keeping the same name as the game.
What does a gigahertz typically measure?
So a gigahertz is just the frequency, how fast a waveform repeats, essentially.
Gotcha. So if you're on a 5G, 5 gigahertz network, you're not using 5G as most people think. You're using the 5 gigahertz network, and that has a faster wavelength. Is that what it would be?
Yeah, it's a faster wavelength, but with that faster wavelength comes the it
can't travel through walls and
exactly.
floors. Right. So your 2.4 gigahertz network, and this is for your home internet, but your cell phones also utilize it as well. Your 2.4 gigahertz network is kind of more for your long range, for devices that are away from the router. Meanwhile, your 5G is really going to be for your kind of like shorter range, only a room, maybe two away, or in the same room.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And you do see a lot of that with 5G, with the 5G networks, but on a much larger scale, and we'll get into that later.
Okay. So to just clarify, should we call should we call 5G Wi-Fi, if you will, like home of the 5 gigahertz? Do we want to give that a different name, just for clarification for the podcast?
Yeah, we can. So let's just call that a 5 gigahertz networking.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 gigahertz. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay. So the 5G for cell phones is it is estimated to be anywhere from 10 to 100 times faster than the previous generation.
Really?
Which is, yeah, it's very, very fast. It's very fast. And there's 3 main forms of 5G: low band, mid band, and high band.
Okay.
That's so when I say low, mid, and high band, we're talking about the frequency at which 5G is being.
The radio frequency.
Exactly.
And so what's the difference? Like, what's kind of the physical difference between a low, mid, or high band? You know, how far apart in the spectrum are they?
So we'll kind of get into that.
Okay.
Low band populates the 600 to 700 megahertz spectrum.
Okay.
The mid band populates 3.5 to 3.7 gigahertz. Okay. And the high band is even higher than that. I'm not. I do have.
Didn't write it down.
I didn't write it down in that section, but I do have that.
So for anybody who's confused out of your minds right now, the gist of it is this information that we're going over at this exact moment probably isn't the most important for understanding 5G.
Mm-hmm.
But what you want to know is that the main difference between the bands is primarily going to be the capacity of information that those bands can handle at any given time, coupled with the range. So, for example, if I'm not mistaken, a high band 5G network is going to have a high capacity but at low range.
Exactly.
And low band 5G is going to be the opposite, where you're going to have less capacity at. Did I flip that up? Is it less capacity but higher speeds? No. It's slower speeds, higher capacity.
Yeah.
So that's more of your like long distance 5G. Meanwhile, because, for example, I saw a lot a couple years back when they were deploying some 5G systems into major cities. I was seeing they were deploying them on every like street light.
Yep.
And so that would be your high band.
Exactly.
5G, but 5G also exists in like low band, so you don't have to place it every mile. You can do it every many miles and so on and so forth.
Exactly. So getting into low band. So I'm going to talk specifically about low band, mid band, and high band individually.
Okay.
So low band, you want to think of it as kind of like a blanket. It's called blanket coverage, right? It's offering blanket coverage.
Sure.
It covers a very wide area.
Yep.
But it's significantly slower.
Okay.
It can actually span hundreds of miles from one tower. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And I assume that's an increase from the previous generation?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. And low band actually is known to reach speeds of up to 250 megabits per second on the down. Yeah. It's very, very fast.
So for anybody, just to kind of I just want to throw a number out here. So I spent some time, and technically I still sit on a intermunicipal committee here for some towns in rural Maine. And what this committee is doing is we're looking at bringing broadband. I believe it's 6 communities within the committee, and we're looking at bring broadband to the towns in rural Maine. And so broadband is a term that a lot of people throw around because when you're talking about internet, you're talking specifically about broadband. And what broadband is it's referring to a minimum. Think of broadband as a minimum speed for your internet that is classified as kind of like a I would almost compare it to like the poverty line, right?
Okay.
So if you're below broadband speeds, you're below the poverty line. Your internet is much slower than what the standard should be. But if you're above broadband, then your internet is faster than what that standard should be.
Sure.
And so the reason I bring that up is you're mentioning that 5G, right, in the low bands, which is where it's going to be its slowest, has a speed of 250 megabits down, the download speed.
Yep.
Broadband is classified as having a download speed of 25 megabits.
So it's significantly
It's
faster than
10
even
times
that.
faster than what we would consider kind of the poverty line of internet speeds.
Yep.
So that's just a really interesting thing to note, because one thing that means is that for a lot of people, potentially, if 5G wireless gets rolled out into more rural areas, where it has that larger coverage, even though there's going to be some obstructions, based off that speed, some people might actually end up getting faster wireless internet than they are getting their physical Wi-Fi.
Yep. Yep. I do slight disclaimer there. Speeds can get as low as 30 megabits though.
30 I mean, that's still
Yeah.
faster. I know, and I bring that up because over in my hometown, there are people that have speeds of just 2.5
Yeah.
megabits down. There are speeds of 0.7 megabits down, and I mean, that's just so gross with how bad it is. So even if the speed's minimum, if you will, is 30 megabits per second, this is going to be a double or triple speeds of people that you and I know. And the thing too is that it's not completely, it's out in the sticks, but it's out in the sticks by 15 miles.
Yeah, it's
so
not bad.
Establishing blanket coverage around the metropolitan areas, at least here, will probably drastically increase speeds for people out in more rural areas.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to the mid-band. The mid-band is going to offer less range than the low band, but it's still going to cover most metropolitan areas very well. It's kind of so a lot of analogies I've seen are thinking of it as are thinking of 5G as a layered cake. So you have your base layer, right, and it's larger.
The blanket.
Yeah. Yep. You have your blanket, and then you have your middle tier, which is going to cover a larger area than the top tier.
Sure.
That's it's going to provide that nice balance between speed and between coverage. Exactly. And then you have your top tier, which is the fastest. Kind of the sweetest bit, but not it's not a lot.
Sure.
So the mid band will populate the 3.5 to 3.7 gigahertz spectrum.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit faster than the low band.
Well, it's actually, I've just taken a look at the numbers you've written down here, and it looks significantly faster.
Yes,
2 to 3 times faster, to be specific.
Yep.
Well, actually, here, let's go over this real quick. You have written down here, we just have research and notes, so that we're informed as we're talking to you guys. One of the things written down here is that the midband peaks at 400 megabits per second in the U.S., but can go higher in some markets. Are there other countries that have different regulations allowing 5G mid-range bands to have better speeds by slightly adjusting the frequency they're on?
So as of right now, no. But it has the potential to reach 600 to 700 in some markets. We're looking mostly at Asia for that because Samsung and manufacturers
it's kind of like within the mid range there's different tiers, essentially, is what it is.
Kind of. But in the United States, I do believe it's because of regulations that are going to limit that speed. But it's also a technological.
So the technology isn't fully there.
Exactly.
Yeah, in Asia right now, kind of talking your Korea, your Japan, your China. China. When you're talking to those places, they're kind of at the forefront right now of that technological innovation. And probably, if we're being realistic, probably California to an extent may see some of that as well, depending on what U.S. federal regulations do end up being.
Yes. And in the United States, at least right now, the speeds for mid-band are peaking a little bit lower than expected.
Really?
Just because it's such a new technology.
Sure.
So they're still working out the kinks right now. And it's probably due to more of a coverage thing, just because you're not getting that wider coverage. So, so we'll have to see how that
fluctuations and dips within the coverage.
Yep. So we'll have to see how that improves over time.
Sure.
And finally, coming over to high band here, the high bandwidth has improved to the range of about a mile.
Okay.
From a tower. However, the movement of those waves is going to be limited because it's at such a high bandwidth
Okay.
by buildings, by anything. Yeah, it can't really come into contact to anything
Yep.
because it stops the waves, from
Pretty effectively.
progressing.
And so that's why, for example, in very urban areas, or I remember, this was years ago, I remember reading about some outcry about the installation of 5G infrastructure, and I want to say it was Fenway Park. It was a baseball park. And people just going on and on about how stupid the technology is because you had to install so much infrastructure for it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things that's improving, as the technology is developing, but ultimately it's just because of the nature of the wavelengths and the inability of those wavelengths, if you will, to truly travel, not just long distances, but through obstacles. So probably, going inside, you're going to see a significant decrease in speed, if you would.
Yeah. And to kind of play off of the whole Fenway Park thing,
Sure.
5G is just going to be a really great thing for it's going to be a really great advancement for the Internet of Things and getting everything connected.
Well, and so then I do remember. See, I for the life of me don't remember where this article was when I read it. But I know it was quite a while ago now. Feels like quite a while ago at least. But I distinctly remember a counter argument that was presented being the fact that 5G, while the range is low, truly does enable more bandwidth at better speed. And the reason that's important in a place like a baseball park, for example, is 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, if we're being realistic, when you went to a baseball game, you went to the game.
Yeah.
And you weren't on your device. Streaming wasn't necessarily a thing. And the demand, like that on-demand website, going on websites, going on Facebook, so on, social media, that wasn't necessarily as progressed as it is now. And it was really primarily just kind of TV. That was the big one there. But nowadays, when you're going to an event like that, you're on your social media, you're taking videos, you're live streaming. Some people, if I go, say, you and I go and we take the girls and neither of them care about baseball, they could be on their social media, and that's an option that people just didn't have. So there is that demand and there is that need for not just increased speed, but increased bandwidth. And bandwidth is the ability for multiple devices to be on a network at a time.
Yes.
And so on. So, for example, I pay at home, we pay for 100 megabits down. Where we are in Maine, that is the minimum speed we can get with the provider we're going with.
Yep.
We will never see that speed. And the reason we'll never see that speed, especially now, because of what's going on with the coronavirus pandemic and more people at home and so on and so forth, is that as more devices use the network, use the internet, that slows it down for everybody because the bandwidth, the ability for devices to be on the network, that's going to diminish as more and more devices get on. And so 5G is going to kind of allow us to open that back up a little bit again. And kind of allow more devices and more connections to be using it simultaneously, but also at faster speeds. So for example, when I get home right around 5 or 6 o'clock, I notice a huge change in my internet speeds because people are streaming all of a sudden. That's when a lot of the work days are ending. And now that people are working from home, that's kind of shifted up a few hours. It used to be a little later in the night. But if I'm up at 2 a.m, which isn't that often anymore, then middle school, high school, those late nights, college even.
I can't stay up for the life of me now. I can't stay up past midnight. It's such a struggle.
Yeah, I feel very old, very old.
Yeah.
We're not.
No, we're not. No. Not at all.
But so it's 5G is really going to improve not just your speed, but it's going to improve your speed, but it's going to enable you to use more devices at a given time, both on your network and within the community at large.
Here's a great example of that. If you've ever gone Black Friday shopping in Maine, there's only one mall to go to. That's the Maine Mall. Okay?
Well, the Bangor Mall would like to know your location.
Okay, but
The Auburn Mall's really mad at you.
Oh my God, the Auburn Mall. Okay.
Okay, there's only one good mall.
Yeah, there's only one good mall in Maine, and that's the Maine Mall in Portland.
Sure.
So if you go Black Friday shopping at the Maine Mall, you're going to notice that you can't get on your social media.
Yep.
You can't, because everybody is populating that space.
Yes.
That space on the internet, on the cell networks. It's just not going to happen for you. You have a hard time even sending out a text message.
Yep.
It's a real struggle. And for the most part, I can see 5G really improving this. Really improving these problems where you have populated areas, like going to that sporting event,
going to concerts.
Yep. You can't access that stuff. You can't share those moments. But with 5G, you're going to be able to.
Yep. Helping students, especially because I remember, when we went to when we were in high school, the internet speeds were horrible.
Oh,
and
my
it
goodness.
dropped off all the time.
Yep.
So improving speeds within schools, for our kids, but also probably within higher education as well, for businesses, within offices. I mean, really just kind of the demand is increasing in really unprecedented ways and very, very quickly. So the technology has been able to keep up with that but we're really starting to finally hit that breaking point. 5G is kind of that relief.
Yeah. And this technology is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
Right. So you can really see that, they're really laying the groundwork for the next generation. I wouldn't say that 5G is for us. I'd say that it's really for the next generation.
You think the rollout's going to take that long?
For it to really reach its peak, I think we're going to be waiting, another 10 years, really, before we see this technology at its peak.
Well, and that's one of the other things, too, if I'm not mistaken. Not every device can utilize the new 5G networks, correct?
Yes.
So only some devices can?
Yeah, and there's not a lot of devices out there right now that can.
But if you want a device that will get you out there, feel free to, dump your iPhone and join me with the Galaxy S20 5G.
All right, listen here. We don't need to go into that. Last week you had such a problem with that dead pixel.
I still have a problem with that dead pixel, and I was dumb and never called back the phone store, so it's been past what I assume would be the return window for me to replace my phone.
Well, that sounds like a you problem.
It is a me problem. But at least I can use 5G.
Hey, you know what? If you don't want dead pixels in your phones,
oof, that's throwing some shade right there.
Yeah, that is throwing some shade.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think 5G is really something to get excited about.
Absolutely. With that being said, I think that's going to wrap it on this first segment.
Yeah,
I
think this segment's gone pretty well. We're gonna slip right in here to a bit of a commercial break. So enjoy some nice free royalty music coupled with a little commercial about Basileus and our services, and we will see you guys back on the other side with some information about the 5G conspiracy theories.
We will be right back.
Many people and businesses have been forced to work from home, stay at home, or send people home because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This time at home is being spent on devices such as a computer, and as such, many computers are under unusually large amounts of use, which can slow them down and make them dirtier. Because of that, Basileus Technology Solutions is discounting all of our PC tune-ups by $25 to allow you to get your PC back up and running. That means you can get your PC to run like new for as low as just $25. Keep an eye out on our Facebook and website, www.basileusts.com, for more information to come soon.
Welcome back, listeners. We're now in the back half of the podcast.
What?
Real quick before we get started here, just want to ask for some feedback about what you guys think about this segment. Do you like it? Do you not?
In terms of the megasode, at least, because we're testing out I am way too far from my mic. We're testing out the new format and so on and so forth, and we really like the idea of doing the occasional episode about a larger topic, split up like this. So we'd really like to hear your feedback and see what you guys think about that, as well as also getting some feedback about what you guys thought about that little ad we did. Typically, we'll do ads, maybe sponsorships from other companies and so on. No Raid Shadow Legends, I promise you that.
We'll see.
No. And so on and so forth. But obviously, we just wanted to test it out with a little ad of our own.
Yeah. So to jump right back into it, in this segment, we're going to be talking about some of the conspiracy theories concerning 5G.
Always a fun one.
Yeah, sure is. So these theories have been circulating since 5G started rolling out back in 2018.
Yep.
And these are theories ranging anywhere from 5G causing cancer to causing the current pandemic that we're dealing with COVID-19. So one of the first ones I want to talk about is the fact that that 5G is a hazard to your health. This is just a theory, again.
Is it?
It is. It is.
It is?
It's a theory.
Oh, I was asking if it's a hazard to my health.
No, it's not a hazard to your health.
Oh.
It is not a hazard to your health.
Oh.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. So 5G is not a hazard to your health, but there is a conspiracy theory that it is.
Naturally.
Now, this claim is dating back to the 90s due to the cell phone usage back in the day. A lot of critics against cell phones claimed that these cell phones could cause cancer.
I mean, radiation does cause cancer.
It does.
But if I'm not mistaken, the amount you're exposed to through utilizing a cell phone is so minimal that it is not enough to do that.
Yeah, and it's non-ionizing radiation, which means that you're not going to take ions off of molecules and atoms in your body.
Gotcha.
So it's not causing cancer. It's non-ionizing.
So it's only
radiation.
ionizing radiation that really destabilizes your atoms. Gotcha.
Exactly.
So by having this non-ionizing, then you're in the clear.
Yeah, and this is coming from the EPA, off the EPA's website.
Environmental Protection Agency.
Yes. Non-ionizing radiation has enough energy to move atoms around in a molecule, but not enough to remove electrons.
Gotcha.
So not ions, but electrons.
So, I mean, it can do some stuff.
Yeah, but it's not going to hurt you in any way. In fact, all electronic devices do emit some radiation.
Sure.
Yep. That includes cell phone towers.
And 4G.
And 4G and, all that stuff. Yep.
All of that.
All of that. Yeah, so that dates. So that claim will date all the way back to the 90s. It's just kind of been always a problem.
The claim.
Yes. And there was a image actually circulating around on the internet. I don't know if you've seen this, of somebody working on a 5G tower in a hazmat suit.
Of course they were.
So I'll let you take a look at that. Yeah.
Let me go take a look at this. The Snapchat thing.
Yeah.
5G installation guy wearing a obligated not to say the F word hazmat radiation suit. So let me ask you this. Is that a hazmat radiation suit that he is wearing?
That's not a hazmat radiation suit. That honestly just looks like a protective suit. And it was clarified later that the suit was because he was using chemicals to clean the tower.
Oh.
So he was protecting himself against chemicals that were being sprayed on the tower for some reason or another. So not because it's producing some sort of radiation that's going to hurt him.
Sure.
So that's a major one. So moving on, another theory is that 5G can kill birds and plant life.
Can it?
It cannot.
Just like it can't hurt you and I?
Exactly. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt animals. It's not going to hurt plant life.
And is that because it's non-ionizing?
Yes. So the basis of this theory came from the Netherlands. In October of 2018, there were 297 dead birds found in a city in the Netherlands after some 5G trials.
Okay.
So the cause of death was determined to be collision.
Oh.
So it's thought to be that a bird of prey, something like that, a predator, swooped in and the birds started flying around, and they in a large flock, and a lot of them collided with each other and
died on impact.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and to tackle the plant life in Serbia, a image surfaced of some felled trees that had started to rot. So some conspiracy theorists online said that it was that they cut the trees to cover up the fact that that the trees were going to die anyways due to the 5G towers.
Of course, they saw it.
Right. It was later confirmed by a politician that they wanted to remove the trees because they were starting to rot, and they wanted to replace them with new maple trees.
Sure.
And they did replace them soon after. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, it just kind of ranges all over the place.
Yeah, it's really... So the basis of a lot of these theories is just really circumstantial stuff that people are kind of getting scared of. That's kind of human nature too, to be scared of new things, of new and emerging things that you don't understand.
And that's the foundation of the theory. That's the foundation of the theory behind the 5G towers causing the coronavirus as well, isn't it?
Yes, and that's funny because I'm about to get into that now. So the 5G causing COVID-19, that theory actually originated from a French conspiracy website called Le Mouton en Rage. I butchered that, I'm sorry. Roughly translating to the rabid sheep.
Naturally.
Yes.
Wake up, sheeple.
So, anyways, they posted an article somewhere in January,
Sure.
Noticing that Wuhan had installed 5G towers before the outbreak.
Okay.
And they were just kind of like, oh, look at these two things, so this must equal this.
Right.
And it kind of blew up on the internet. And 3 months after that article posted, fires were being set on towers, just widespread panic. Yeah.
Wow.
And it progressed to the point that in the UK,
okay,
I just saw an article that like 77 cell towers have just been burned.
And to put that into some perspective, this is the third or fourth take of this section of the podcast, and the initial statistic we were working off of was about 50 towers in the UK.
Yeah.
And so just kind of the information that in between doing those takes is updated now to about 74, 75, at least from what we've been able to find.
Yeah, it's kind of being a little bit crazy.
And if I'm not mistaken, that conspiracy theory is continuing to gain momentum.
It is. And this theory is also false. Okay, this is coming from the AP.
And for those of you that aren't aware of the AP, it's the Associated Press, and the Associated Press prides itself as being a non-partisan and non-opinionated, typically, piece of news and piece of journalism. And it's quite literally, you will find nothing but the who, what, when, where, and occasionally a why, with no opinion and so on and so forth. Highly reputable, and more often than not, if you're reading or listening to CNN or you're listening to Fox News or so on and so forth, their sources more often than not are indeed actually from the AP News.
Gotta love the AP.
Yeah, no, the AP is the news source. So if you are, on a tangent, if you are looking for a non-biased method of achieving or getting your news, you can go visit the Associated Press because they're going to provide that for you.
So the AP on this topic said that there is no evidence that 5G, fifth generation wireless, is related to or causes COVID-19. Both maps, the map of 5G wireless towers,
sure,
and the map
of the pandemic,
map of COVID spread, simply highlight densely populated parts of the U.S.
Sure.
So just blatantly putting it out there, that's the only link, is that they're in populated areas, which makes a lot of sense because 5G is meant for those populated areas.
Because it typically has lower ranges than previous generations.
Exactly.
And just like with this pandemic, I was just watching a news broadcast being done by the governor of the state of Maine, Governor Mills, and there were just a lot of, she had mentioned Massachusetts and Boston, and a lot of people were going on about, oh, don't compare Maine to Boston. And the reason I'm sidetracking just a little bit here is because kind of just like with the pandemic is you're not going to expect, because Boston has a very large amount of COVID cases, and Maine, when compared to Boston and Massachusetts, has very much a small amount of COVID cases. But it's also similar with 5G, is those really developed areas in Massachusetts and Boston so on, they're the ones kind of with the 5G networks because there's more people there.
Yeah.
Maine has less than 2 million people living in the whole state. I think it's around 1.6, 1.7 million. And so you have major cities in the United States that have more population than the entire state of Maine. So naturally, you would expect those places to be where this technology is going out first. But also, I distinctly remember my first trip to New York City. I went to Harlem at midnight looking for a chopped cheese. And
I remember this story.
It's a great story. It is a great story. And it was a fantastic sandwich. But I distinctly remember we got our chopped cheeses. We were walking back to the car because we were driving back from New Jersey. And on the sidewalk, human feces.
Oh my Lord.
No, and I mean, even in Portland, if you go down in Portland, kind of by downtown area, I was with my dad. We were going out to get lunch. Human feces on the sidewalk. You just the urban areas, there's more people there. There's more opportunities for a virus, but also because of the amount of people that are there, living situations that some people are feeling or going through, there's also more opportunities to allow a virus to spread. So just like how there is a reason for 5G to be spreading and going through urban areas as opposed to rural ones, because the technology is new, the technology is expensive, you want to get the best coverage you can and impact the most people you can, it makes sense. You're gonna roll it out into urban areas. And just like with this pandemic is where you have that higher population density, there's more opportunities for more hosts, and there's more opportunities to infect more people, and therefore you're going to have more cases. I mean, that's just how illnesses and pandemics work.
Yep. But it's not spread. It's not spread by 5G.
No. It's kind of what's the saying? Correlation doesn't equal causation. Is that what the saying is?
Yeah.
It's exactly one of those. One of those situations. Just like for example, we'll throw some technology support. If you throw, I know some people will smack a piece of technology and it'll work.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily.
That's not why.
It's not why. Giving it a good hit isn't necessarily going to fix it.
I actually have a good story about that.
Okay, I was going to say, because that's a bad example because I have no story. But if you can back that up.
I have a really good example. So we had really bad Chromebooks in high school. Liam remembers these Chromebooks,
they
right?
Were the worst.
Just garbage pieces of machine. And so it's my senior year, right? And I am sitting in an English class with a good buddy of mine.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say his name just for privacy, for privacy things.
Yeah.
But if he listens to this, he'll know this story. So every time his computer would be slow or something like that, he would look to see if the teacher's watching.
Yep.
And if he's not, he'd put it on its side and smack the ever living crap out of it.
Yep.
Just as hard as he could.
Holy crap.
And usually it'd work.
Really?
For some reason or another, it would work. And like me and another buddy at the table we were sitting at, we were just afraid that he was going to break it.
Sure.
He was just beating on the thing. It was really, really bad.
Sure.
But don't do that to your laptops, by the way, folks.
Yeah, no,
that's such a bad idea.
Don't do that.
Yeah, but that's my story.
I think this is a long, drawn-out example that doesn't necessarily add to our point or our argument. However, what I will say is that, correlation does not equal causation. Just because you're smacking the living the living out of your laptop
Yeah.
does not mean that's what's fixing your laptop.
Yeah.
You know, just because 5G is in urban areas does not mean that's why urban areas have the coronavirus.
Yep.
There are a plethora of factors in play for both why the coronavirus is in where it is and why 5G is where it is. And interestingly enough, many of those factors are the same, but the two aren't. But one isn't being precipitated by the other.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to the question of why is this theory being spread around so much?
That is a great question because it seems like a theory without much merit.
Exactly. But when you get these really high influence celebrities and conspiracy theorists with a very large audience, especially here in the United States, false claims and stuff like that start to get spread around. So this has really been fueled by a lot of celebrities. Celebrities, like Wiz Khalifa. Do you know who that is?
I know who Wiz Khalifa is, but I haven't heard anything about them talking about 5G.
So he tweeted out, I couldn't get a date on it, but he tweeted out some time ago, Corona, 5G, or both. That tweet got over 41,000 likes.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Twitter numbers, that's pretty big.
Yeah. So, I mean, like that, and he's a pretty high profile. You know, I know you're not a rap guy at all.
No, I'm not
a
rap guy.
But he's a pretty high profile celebrity.
Sure.
So having somebody like that who's that influential tweet that out.
Sure.
You know, and it's not just him. There were quite a few celebrities.
Like who?
So a couple of movie stars. I actually closed the article. I was just using him because he was the biggest name on there.
Sure.
Yeah, but there were a couple more. I closed the article. I can pull it back up if you want.
Sure. And in the meantime, that will provide me the opportunity to talk about a little something else. And speaking of the propagation of this conspiracy theory, when it comes to conspiracies, one thing that a lot of you guys may be familiar with is InfoWars and Alex Jones.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so I'll go down this rabbit hole. So for those of you that aren't aware, InfoWars is a very, very far right-wing conspiracy theory website. And Alex Jones and his network have done a variety of horrible, horrible things. Like, for example, denying the Sandy Hook massacre.
Oh, boy.
And then confronting the parents and telling them that they're liars.
I had not actually realized that.
Yeah, and so
that's really sad.
So there were some lawsuits involved with that, and so on and so forth. I know he just lost custody of his kids, and a very heated court settlement. And he also has been pulled off of YouTube primarily. His channel's been taken down, I believe. He's been taken off of his podcast has been taken off of just about every podcasting network and so on.
Yeah.
So he's really, at least as of recently, has lost a lot of credibility. I mean, he never really had credibility to begin with, but people have finally really started to take him down. And so obviously he's all into, the chemicals in the water turn frogs into homosexuals.
Specifically frogs.
Precipitated by Obama.
Mm-hmm.
The massacre was a fake and so on and so forth. And just any conspiracy theory you can think of, lizard people, so on and so forth. That's kind of what they're pushing over at InfoWars with Alex Jones. So naturally, they're also pushing that 5G kills, 5G causes the coronavirus, and all of that. And it's actually really interesting. Noah couldn't believe it when he was doing research, and I have a picture of it right here in front of me. But InfoWars actually sells T-shirts that say 5G kills. And it is a picture of a 5G tower with the big circle with a cross through it, and it says 5G kills. And it's just really... obviously there's some statements being done by celebrities, but a lot of it is also people like Alex Jones who are propagating these theories, but also making profits off of people's fears. Yeah,
it's really sad. So some more of the celebrities that are or were pushing this theory. A lot of these celebrities have taken these tweets down since then. doing what I think it would be the responsible
Sure.
thing. But they did still tweet it. So Carrie Hilson, who's a singer, I'm not really familiar with her music at
No,
all.
me neither.
But she had tweeted, "Turn off 5G by disabling LTE." That's an abbreviated quote, but yeah, that doesn't make any sense, right?
No, it doesn't make any sense.
No, 5G and LTE are kind of two different things. But yeah, that's something that she had tweeted out. Her management did tell her to take down the tweet.
Take it down.
Strong advisement.
Yep.
A British rapper, MIA. Again, no real clue. Again, the real big name on this would be Wiz Khalifa, at least for...
What are some of the others? Just kind of run down the list.
Woody Harrelson.
That's a big name.
Yeah, that is a big name.
What did he do?
He said he used his Instagram account and shared a video called "Meanwhile, the Chinese are bringing 5G antennas down." Yeah. This article says that he had fallen for a hoax and his followers were quick to help him out. Okay. But he did spread it around.
Did propagate that.
Yep. Champion British. So they're Amir Khan is a British Pakistani boxer.
Yep.
About 1.3 million followers in general.
Yep.
And
also it pushed something.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of people that have from all over the world that have been pushing these theories.
Yep.
But to kind of segue off of people that have been propagating these theories, I know one of the things that you've done some now extensive research into is that it's not just people that have been pushing these theories necessarily, but also governments.
Yeah. So Russia has made some real claims against 5G. They have claimed that 5G is linked to brain cancer, infertility, autism, heart tumors, and Alzheimer's. Those are some pretty strong accusations there.
I'm sure there's a lot of information to back that up, especially considering how new the technology is being implemented in 2018. I'm sure there's been a lot of detailed studies going over how it does all of those things.
There are no detailed studies.
What?
Right? I thought there would be. No. There are no detailed studies on it. The reason that they're kind of coming to this conclusion is that because 5G is so high on the radio wave spectrum,
sure,
it goes up so high,
sure,
that they think, oh, this is causing some complications.
Problems.
Yeah, that's not the case. There's something called a novel EHF therapy. It's a health therapy, kind of that has to deal with radio waves.
Okay.
That actually goes up to a higher frequency than 5G does.
Really?
And that's used by both China and Russia actively in their medicinal practices.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if they're so against something because it has such high radio waves, why are they using something?
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yep. And interestingly enough, it seems like a Russian news network, RT. They have an American section there.
And I never realized that was a Russian-funded news network. That is scary stuff.
Yep, and they've been pushing this rumor, and even comparing it so much as a biblical apocalypse. Yeah. So it's just like...
It's just fear-mongering is what it is.
It really is.
It
is fear-mongering. And we're here to tell you that this really there's nothing to be scared of.
Sure.
This is a technology that's going to help a lot of people.
Sure.
It's going to bring faster internet speeds to those who need it. It's going to help students. It's going to help medical staff. It's going to help everybody.
Sure. And I think the other big takeaway here, is obviously that, we felt that it was important to do this podcast, to do this megasode, to go over not just what 5G is, but also to cover, what a lot of the conspiracies are, why they're not true, how they're not true, and just how the technology is safe for you right now. But ultimately, what I would like to say is I think it would be putting ourselves at fault if we said, just take our word for it, go read the Associated Press, go do your own research.
Yes.
And ultimately, the research is very one-sided because there are a lot of gaps and there are a lot of claims where if you just stop and think, it doesn't make logical sense. And I think that's where a lot of just kind of the fear mongering can stop, is just stop and think, does this make sense? And ultimately they're grasping by straws with a lot of these theories, and they just don't make sense.
Yep. And if you guys want any of the links, we'll have links to all these articles on the website.
We will. The one thing I am going to say right now is our website, our blog has been broken.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So the back end of our blog has been broken, which is preventing us and has prevented us from setting up proper blog posts and so on for each of these episodes. So we will have a place with the information. We will have a place for you to comment and so on and so forth. I just don't have an exact, at the time of airing this, I don't have an exact time frame for when that's going to be, just because we're working on this, and then after this, we're working more so on the website. So we just don't have that ETA established just yet.
Yep, but we will let you guys know when that is up and running.
Yep, we'll have that posted up on the website, and also
exactly.
It'll go up on social media as well.
Yeah. So I think that's just about going to do it for us today.
I think that was a pretty good megasode. I really hope you guys enjoyed that as well. I know we definitely enjoyed doing the longer format. So let us know what you guys think. And next week we will be back with, well, we're going to find out. We have a few ideas out there. Maybe even have an interview for you guys. But
maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We're working on lining some fun things up. So I think it'll be a great time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you to everybody who has listened, and we look forward to hearing back or getting back to you next week.
Bye, guys.